Hello, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Folake Akomolafe. I'm a marriage counselor and I'm interested in seeing marriages thrive. I'm interested in helping people to succeed in their marriage through my teachings, through my counseling. I love to help people to be able to make the best out of their marriage. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing on how we can use effective communication to build strong marriages and family. Remember, my previous videos have shared on how we can build strong marriages and family in 2025. I've shared on building with intentionality. I've shared on building with trust and sincerity. I've shared on also building with knowledge. So this is like a part 4 to that series, and basically I'm going to be looking at how we can use effective communication to be able to build a strong marriage and a family in 2025. So let's go. In this video, like I said, it's about effective communication. So I'm going to first define what effective communication means. Like effective communication is being able to convey your feelings, your words, your feelings in a way that the other person can understand and give you the feedback that you desire. So when we talk about effective communication, we are saying that your ability to be able to convey your feelings, your words to the other person, in this scenario your spouse, in such a way that your spouse can understand you and be able to respond in an expected manner, in the manner that you so expect or you desire. So that's why where what effective communication is all about, your ability to be able to get the needed response from your spouse based on what you have communicated to them. And you know that marriage is what we do. So a lot of times in marriage we communicate, we have our intentions, what you want to do, no matter how good they are. If you are not able to communicate them to your spouse, you won't be able to do it. So effective communication is a very important tool in building a strong marriage and a family life. You have to be able to communicate. And I've realized this as a marriage counselor. A lot of issues in marriage are just basically because the couples are not able to communicate sincerely. You wonder that when you hear some people's story, you wonder that there's no issue in this thing. It's just being able to sit down and communicate. And one thing I've also found out is that issues degenerate in marriage because of lack of effective communication. So when we are able to communicate with our spouse, we'll be able to solve a lot of issues. In fact, we might not even need counselors, we might not even need the third party. When two people are able to sit together and communicate effectively in a mature way, a lot of issues will be solved. And that's why this video is very important. So I want you to come along with me and let's look at the principles that can help us to be able to communicate effectively. And mind you, these principles I'm going to share with us is not only for married couples, it's between husband, it's between parents and children. It's also, these are principles that you can use even in your workplace to be able to communicate effectively and get your desired results. So I want you to come along with me with open mind, and we're going to get the best. And let me tell you that these principles I'm about to share with us, they are principles that I read from a book called Christian Counseling, authored by Gary Collins. So if you are able to lay your hand on the book, you can also read more and get it and get details about each of those principles that I will be sharing. And like I said, they are timeless principles that you will use it. You can use it in any relation, in any form of relationship. They are timeless. They are principles that have been tested, and you can be guaranteed of the results that they produce. So the first thing I want to talk about is when you are looking at how to communicate effectively, one of the things you must avoid is avoid double message. Avoid double message. And when I mean double message, I mean that avoid saying something and contradicting it in another way. Maybe you have said something verbally and you are now using non-verbal to contradict it. Remember that we communicate both in words, tone, facial expression, body language, our gesture. So our communication is not limited to our words alone. No, Communication, in fact, someone said maybe it's like 5 or 10% of what we communicate is used by word. The other ones, the non-verbal make up about 85% of our communication. So you see now, so it's possible for someone to be saying something verbally and be contradicting it with their body language or contradicting it with facial expression. So that's why we say avoid double message. Let me give you an example. You are telling your wife, I love you, sweetheart, but the way you have said it is you are saying it angrily. You are saying it with a tense face. You are saying it with an angry face. And you see, love is a sweet emotion. There's no way you tell somebody I love you and you will say it frowning. No, it doesn't communicate that emotion the way it is. So you are saying I love you, it's the whole of your body, the whole of your being must communicate that sweetness that is packaged in that word. So avoid double message will help us to be able to communicate better, because our words and our verbal and our non-verbal will be aligned. So we need to be very careful even when we are communicating, to make sure that we communicate, but we avoid double messages in our communication. Then another principle is deal with it now. When it comes to effective communication, the principle of handling issues now is very important. And when I mean now, I'm not saying now that the argument is still hot. And what I'm trying to say is that deal with it as soon as you can. Don't allow issues to be piling up. Don't allow emotions to be piling up. Someone said delays have the potential of creating layers of negative emotion. So if issues happen and you didn't deal with it immediately, it has a way of creating different layers of negative emotion. So something happened this month, you pile it up, you didn't address it. Next month another thing happened, you kept it and you didn't address it. If you keep piling it up like that, a time will come when the emotions will no longer be curtailed, then you burst. And when you burst, you can imagine how bad it's going to be, because you have piled up issues. So if we are looking at effective communication in our marriage, we must also learn how to deal with issues as they come. Don't pile it up. Let the matter be solved and let it just be resolved amicably. Like I said earlier, it's not that when you are still angry you must address it. No, that's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying as much as earlier as you can, when you can calm yourself. And I'm not also saying sometimes occasions might not be right, environment might not be right. So I'm not saying no matter the environment, just address it. No, that's not what I'm saying. Wait for the right emotion, wait for the right atmosphere, and make sure you address it as soon as you can, to avoid it piling up. I hope somebody is getting me. Then the next thing is we have to respect cross-cultural relationship. In one of that's one of the very salient and important principles of effective communication, because we understand that people are from different cultures and different cultures have different meanings to certain gestures. So when we are communicating, you have to understand and respect cultural relationship. In some cultures, when I'm talking to you and I point my finger like this, it has a meaning, and the meaning is not nice. But some other culture, they don't read meaning to it. It's just you are talking and the intent of the argument is making me to do like this. Other people don't read meaning to it. But some other cultures, when you do like this, especially talking to someone that you are older than, and you are doing your finger like this, is like you are is like a kind of insult. You are scolding them. So some people might get offended. So when we come to being able to communicate effectively, we have to respect cross-cultural relationship. And like I used to tell people, nothing on its own mean anything. It's a meaning we attach to it. So you have to be careful of how you view, because this person you are saying that, look at the way you are pointing your finger, if the person doesn't even understand what you are saying, because in her language or in her culture, pointing finger does not mean anything, but you have attached a meaning to it. So you see where the pressure will be coming from. So we have to be very open and also respect cross-cultural relationship. And I tell people, especially married people that are getting married, intercultural marriage, you have to learn to understand certain things. You have to understand certain things about the culture of the person you are getting married to Don't just be blind about it. You have to understand it and treat it the way the person sees it. Fine, in your own place it doesn't have meaning, but to this person it has meaning. So you have to respect that and give that space as much as you can. Next, let's look at another one, which is accept that issues can be viewed uniquely. That's another thing similar to what I've just said. We have to accept that issues can be viewed uniquely. And what I'm trying to say here is that, see, you don't have the exclusive your opinion is not the only right opinion. The people look at issues differently, so it doesn't mean that the way you are looking at it is the right way. It doesn't mean that you are the only one that have the right opinion or the right way of looking at things. No, that's not what it is. Issues can be viewed differently, different way of looking at issues, and that does not make somebody wrong or the other person right. That is very important. People have different ways of viewing issue, and it doesn't make the other person right and the another person wrong. So we have to accept that you don't have the exclusive, how will I say, you are not exclusively right or you are exclusively wrong. Things can be viewed differently, and you have to respect other people's opinion, your spouse's opinion. Don't assume that your perspective is the only one and all the valid one. No, that's not the way things work. You have to understand and accept that, fine, this is the way you are looking at the issue. This is another person might be looking at it from different perspective. None of you is wrong, none of you is right. So you have to be able to give that benefit of doubt. Don't assume your perspective is only one that is valid. I've seen a relationship between husband and wife degenerate badly because of this. One person just assumed I'm the right person, and you are not even looking at the other side. You are not trying to understand the other person's perspective. Things doesn't work that way, and relationship doesn't move on. In fact, that is a very, very bad way of communicating, and it doesn't help couples to communicate effectively. Another one is you have to learn how to focus on current issues when you are communicating. Excuse me. Communication becomes clouded when the past is being dumped into the current conversation. So we are talking about something at the moment, and now you are bringing another thing that has happened 5-10 years ago into this present moment. The whole communication becomes clouded, and we won't be able to make a headway as husband and wife if you communicate that way. So it is wise to avoid bringing unrelated grievances, complaints, and past sins to the table. That is very important. Something that happened 10 years ago, now something happened today, you are now bringing that one. That's how you did 10 years ago. Leave 10 years ago there. Let's deal with what has happened now. And that's why I said earlier that when things happen, don't pile it up. Don't delay in addressing issues. That's, you see, now if you delay, you will now be bringing it at the wrong time. But if you have handled it at that time and you've resolved it, that one has gone. So as in marriage, we don't join issues together. We don't pile issues together. We handle it as separately as they come. It will help us to be able to focus and communicate effectively. Then someone said something, and I want to read. It's a quote, and I want to read it to us. It says, "For better or worse is the promise of forgiveness and a pathway to effective communication in marriage." For better or worse is the promise of forgiveness and a pathway to effective communication in marriage. So when you are able to forge ahead and forgive, leave the past. The past has gone. Leave it and forge away. Communicate. It will help you to communicate effectively and move on in your marriage. Then another thing which is very, very important, I want to talk about this: always show respect and be fair. Communication is important, but sometimes issues arise and we are talking and the matter becomes intense. Please learn to show respect and be fair when you are communicating. When I mean show your respect for your partner and value your partner as a human being, no matter what they have done. Even if your partner have heard or your partner has an disempowering behavior at the moment, don't, because of that, belittle that person, belittle the human being in them. Value them, still value them as human being, and be fair in your communication. Resist fight for finding fault or exaggeration or putting down or calling names or blaming or using all manner of sarcasm to talk to your spouse. Like some you be name calling, like saying you are stupid, you are foolish, you are very stupid, you are very this. That is not showing respect. So no matter how angry you are, you have to learn the skill of still valuing the other person. And not only for your spouse, anybody, even your colleagues in your office. Fine, the person have offended you, the person have done something wrong, very wrong, but you see now you still need to show them respect because they are human being. At that moment they might have an habit that is not good, but that does not make that person less of a human being. The same goes for your spouse. Even if your spouse have offended you, has done something very bad, learn to separate the heart from the person. So when you look at the person and still so that you'll be able to look at the person and still value them as human being and give them the respect that they desire, they command, the respect that is attached to them being human being. And don't disrespect, don't say, don't use insultive word, don't call them names. Because when you do that, this is what you when you do that, using verbal weapon to escalate will, number one, when you do that, it will escalate argument. It will escalate argument. And you see the other person also will want to defend themselves. That's the one thing about human being. We want to, when you start calling names, when you start insulting, there's something in that person too. Even though he knows he has done something wrong, but that does not give you room to start calling me names. That does not give you room to start abusing me. So something in the other person will want to rise up and defend. You understand? And that's why sometimes people enter into physical, that's how sometimes people become violent in relationship. That's sometimes the genesis of violence. Even though I don't support violence on any means, but I'm just trying to give us an idea of what might lead people to becoming violent or becoming physical. So we need to understand that principle. Even with our children, show respect and be fair. Don't insult, don't use name calling, don't try to put the person down. No, fine, the person might not have done well on the particular matter, but that does not make that person to be totally bad. There's still something good in that person, and you need to learn how to value that person as the human being that they are. The next thing is, you need to learn how to be clear when communicating. Be clear. Don't be specific with your word. Don't be ambiguous. Don't just say things out of blues and don't speak grammars that the other person does not understand. For God's sake, don't bring jargons into your communication. Be clear. Space things specifically the way it is. Be concise. Be specific with your word. Be intentional. Choose the right word. It's very important. Don't go and speak in a language that the other person doesn't know, understand. In fact, once you start talking in another language that your spouse or the person you are talking to does not understand, automatically the person assumes you are insulting or you are abusing them because they can't understand you. So there's no way you will be able to communicate with that person at that moment. So you need to learn how to be clear in our communication. Use simple words, concise words, specific words, and don't be ambiguous. Also, be honest about your feelings. This is very important. Be honest about your feelings. In expressing your feelings, be honest. And when you say be honest in your feelings, I'm saying that resist saying that, like using this word, like saying you made me feel, you made me angry, you made me sad, you made me this. See, giving your personal power away is an excuse for bad behavior. Like saying you made me feel, all this kind of statement does not put you in charge, does not put you in command. It's a way of giving your power away so that you can make an excuse for yourself for behaving badly. Someone have said, and I quote, Jim Rohn said something. He said, no one else makes us angry, we make ourselves angry. We surrender the control of our attitude. So no one can make you hungry if you don't want to be hungry. No one can make you sad if you don't want to be sad. You have to understand that you have the power. There's a book I read, a popular book by Stephen Covey, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People. It says that between how will I say between stimulus and response or action, there is a choice. I can't remember how it's put it. Like between what happened and your reaction, you have a choice. That's just the meaning of what he was trying to say there. Between what happened and your reaction, you have a choice. So don't give the power to the other person and say the person made you do it. You have a choice. You can choose your reaction. I usually tell my son that, see, you can't control what other people will do to you, but you can choose the way you react. That is where you have the power. That is the power that God has given you. So don't give it away and use it to explain your bad behavior. Don't give it away and use it to explain your hunger. Don't say you made me hungry. You see, no one else can make us hungry. We make ourselves hungry when we surrender the control of our attitude. And that is it. At every point in time, we have the control over our attitude. That's what they call self-control. That's what is called discipline. And these are things we need to imbibe into our personal life so that we can communicate effectively, both in our marriage, even in the workplace, and anywhere we find ourselves. You need to learn how to be honest with your feelings and resist giving out. You can say, this is how I feel. So instead of saying you made me feel, you can say I felt sad by what you said. I felt sad when you said this. I became hungry when you said this. So you are not giving the power to the other person. You are taking responsibility by saying, I am the one that became hungry. I'm the one that felt sad. You are not the one. You are the one that choose to be sad based on what you said. So if somebody have even insulted you and say you are a very stupid person, you can choose to laugh it away and not get angry. It's a choice, and it depends on how you have built yourself over time. So be honest with your feeling, but also admit, take the responsibility. Just like the quote I read, say we make ourselves angry when we surrender the control of our attitude. Then the next thing is be honest and be sensitive. So I've said be honest about your feelings, good, but also be honest at the same time. Now the next point is saying be honest and be sensitive. So you have to be aware of the other person's, your spouse feeling. And one thing we must know is that words can hurt people. In fact, words are very, very powerful. They can hurt people. When you speak badly to someone, the person might not get out of it for years. A lot of people today are working as an adult, traumatized by what the experience spoke to them years ago. Some people are divorced today, but they are still not whole because of the words their spouse spoke to them in that marriage. So we need to be mindful of our words. We need to realize that intentionally using hurtful words is sabotaging and damaging to any relationship, whether husband and wife, whether workplace colleague, whether children and parents. Intentionally using hurtful words is sabotaging and damaging to any relationship. So you have to be honest. Be honest and be sensitive. Some people will say, no, I want to be honest with you. I want to give you the way it is in my mind. Fine, it's good to say it the way it is, but be careful. Be sensitive to the other person's feeling. And that's what they call emotional intelligence. You are aware of the way you feel, at the same time aware of the feelings of the other person. So don't just lash it out on people without being aware, being sensitive to their feelings, because your words can hurt them. Your words can hurt that person for the rest of their life. So that is why we need to be honest and be sensitive with our words. Then the next one is avoid making or accepting excuses too quickly. A lot of people are fond of making excuses quickly. You won't even allow the person to finish talking. You just make excuse. There's another quote that I saw and I like to read to. It says, if you are sorry, say I'm sorry. If you say I'm sorry but, then you are not really sorry. I don't know whether you get it. Say, so if something has happened and you are telling your spouse I'm sorry, say you are sorry. If you are truly sorry, just tell your spouse I'm sorry. But when you now start saying I'm sorry but honey, you need to know that that means you are not sorry. I'm sorry does not carry buts. That's just it. I'm sorry, true repentance, true sorry does not carry but, does not carry anything. I'm sorry is I'm sorry. So he says, if you are sorry, say I'm sorry. If you say I'm sorry but you are now putting but, then you are not really sorry. That's a quote by Simon Sinek. So I'm sorry does not carry anything. I'm sorry stands alone. I'm sorry is I'm sorry. But when you now say I'm sorry and you are not joining with another thing, but trying to explain why you did what you did, then you are not really sorry. That's what that quote is saying. And that's the whole essence of this point that says avoid making or accepting excuses too quickly. Own up to your actions, whether right or wrong. Man up, just own up and say I'm sorry. There's no need to be explaining and re-explaining. The person is hungry. You have offended the person. So if you are truly sorry, just say I'm sorry. But when you start saying I'm sorry, but then you are not really sorry. Then the next thing is listen carefully, listen respectfully, listen without interruption, listen without criticism. It's very important. You know that listening is a skill that you need to learn if you really want to communicate effectively. You need to learn how to be present in listening, to listen without interrupting, to listen without calculating your response, to listen without looking for a way to criticize the person. You are just listening, you are just carefully and respectively listening. And this is one value that we are losing out in, that is being thrown away in many homes now. Even when children are talking to their parents, a lot of parents are not present. You are talking, you are pressing phone. Your son is talking to you, you are watching television. He's talking to you, you are scrolling through the YouTube. So you are not present. Your attention is divided. When we talk about listening, we are saying listen on with undivided attention. You are careful, you are focused, you are present at the moment, and that's when you are able to get the emotions and the words of the person. When you are not listening actively, the best you can get is the words. You won't be able to listen to see the emotion behind it. And like I said earlier, most of the time when we communicate, our words is like 10 to 15%. The other one, the non-verbal, occupies like 85% of the communication. So if you are only hearing the words the person is speaking, you are not paying attention, then you are missing out in the bulk of the communication. So it's important to learn how to listen actively and practice it. Practice it with your children, practice it with your husband. The more you practice, the more you grow in that skill. Then also ask questions for clarity. So when you are listening actively, you will also be able to know where to ask questions for clarity, because if somebody has said something and you are not so clear with it, you can ask the person, is this what you mean by saying this? So you ask questions for clarity. You are not interrupting them, you allow them to finish, then you ask questions before you respond and react. You now say, okay, let me be sure this is what you mean, so that you won't assume. A lot of times we carry assumption and use it to react, we use it to respond. So when you, instead of assuming this is what the person said, why not just ask question and clarify before you now give your response? That will help you to be able to respond better and give the right feedback. Be willing, and also don't just to ask questions. Also, if you are the one talking and your spouse is asking you question about what you have said, be willing to answer any question so that you can help your spouse gain meaningful understanding of what you are saying. So be willing to be open to question. Don't say no, don't ask me question, don't ask me question. No, then you won't be communicating, because if the person have not heard you clearly and they are asking you question and you are not willing to answer, then there won't be communication. So you must learn how to ask question and be willing to answer any question to help your spouse gain clarity and full understanding. And also be conscious of how you speak. Be conscious of how you speak. Like I said, use kind, soft and polite tone to be able to get your message across. Like I said earlier, most of the times when we speak, it's not only the words we speak, it's also the way we say them, our gesture, our facial expression, our non-verbals as a way of passing across messages to our spouse. So use kind and soft and polite road to get your messages across. Shouting stimulates the need to be heard and negative driving energy of argument. When you start shouting in communication, you are stimulating the need to be heard and you'll be driving negative arguments. That's it. Because as you are shouting, the other person too is shouting. So the two of you are shouting, nobody is hearing each other again. Even the Bible speaking in Proverbs chapter 15 verse 1, it says, a soft answer turneth away what? Wrath. A soft answer turns away wrath. So when you when somebody is even hungry and you answer quietly, you answer softly, kindly, you'll be able to drive away that hunger from that person. But when the person is hungry and shouting, you too, you are responding, shouting and hungry, the whole thing will just, the whole argument will just tense up, and it will not bring any positive or positive reward to your communication. You will not be making a positive headway. And finally, use positive statement and humor. No matter how bad the situation is, you can still introduce humor, you can still laugh, you can still joke, you can still just to calm down. That's just the essence. Use positive statement, don't use negative words. Don't say you are always, you can never change. Those are not positive things. Use positive statement, bring in sense of humor. This is one thing that has helped my husband and I in our 16 years of marriage. No matter what it is, my husband has a way of bringing humor to it, and at the end of the day we'll laugh, but each of us will have gotten the message and we'll move on. So when you learn how to use positive statement and humor, you will help to keep the communication door open. You see, now a lot of reason why some couples don't talk in their marriage, from my little findings, is that one somebody say every time we try to communicate, we argue and we offend each other. So in order not to argue and offend each other, they just keep quiet. But when you have been able to master all the things I've said earlier, and you learn to communicate, use positive statement, you will leave the communication door open in marriage, that you can always come back and talk about things, that you are free to, no matter. One thing in my marriage that has helped us is, no matter what the problem is, we will always talk. We will always talk, we will always communicate, and that has helped us to diffuse so many tensions. And like I said earlier, if couples can actually communicate, a lot of tension will go down, a lot of tension will be diffused, and people will be able to make a headway. So one thing I must say before I end this video is that, like all those things I have said earlier now shows that effective communication is a skill that must be learned. Like I said, if even personally, I have this habit of bringing about what has happened in the past to conversation. But when I became aware of effective communication and how this singular act of mine will be jeopardizing our ability to communicate effectively, I started working on myself consciously. I started working on myself, and I'm much better now in that aspect. So effective communication is not a gift. A lot of us are not born that way. A lot of us grew up in an environment where people don't know how to communicate. So now we need to learn it. And remember, Bishop Oyedepo said something, I quoted it in one of my videos. I said, what you won't learn, you cannot know. So all these things that I've said, the 14 points I've mentioned, if you will not learn them, if you will not carefully engage them, you won't know them. Practicing listening, practicing how to use to use soft answer. If you will not learn them, you won't know it. And the Bible speaking in Proverbs chapter 4 verse 7 says, wisdom is the principal things. In all you're getting, get wisdom. So it's very important to get the wisdom of effective communicating. When you are able to get and understand the importance of effective communication in marriage, it will work. Your marriage will work. That's just it. It will work. It will make your marriage work. Things that will normally bring argument, you are able to iron it out amicably. Then you move on. You enjoy another milestone in your marriage. So remember that effective communication is a very important tool in building a strong marriage and family life. So learn to communicate effectively. All these things that I've mentioned in this video, watch it over and over again and master it. And I see you doing well in your communication. I see you and your spouse being able to communicate effectively. I see your marriage becoming stronger and more blissful, becoming stronger and blissful and happier home in Jesus' name. So until I come your way again, remember to like the video, share it with your family, and subscribe to my YouTube channel for more edifying content about marriage and family life. God bless you.